What a great way to start today off. Got some pictures of the progress on the Ninja. This is the one that just left our shop a couple weeks ago. Progress Steve is making on the restoration. And I really appreciate the sharing of the pictures. Both Steve and I spent, and of course it's all covered on the videos, previous videos. We spent a lot of time on this, and it looks like he's getting it together. Can't wait to see the whole bike in one piece. Thanks for sharing, Steve, but let's get busy with the day's work. So it was really nice waking up to the email from Steve that his project is on track. It's even nicer. Last night I brought these in so they could dry under a heating vent. They're dry. I can reverse backmask them today. And if we do get any weather today, the next thing is going to be to paint the yellow. But they're predicting snow. And you know, since I try to make every day different, I told Karen, just yell down to me if it looks like the snow is starting. I'm not going to paint anything today, but I want to get the battery chargers flipped. So depending on the weather, the choices are going to be to do the final sand out of this wheel, but I don't think we're going to paint it. I don't have, Glenn said he already bought and he's got the black gas cap, but he's not coming over today. And I need to take care of this and get the reverse backmasking. So it's time to take a walk out to see what the weather is. I can't wait, and do the battery charges. I have this day in reverse. Boy, Karen wasn't kidding. In the last 20 minutes, it's gone from just one little snowflake to, well, the weatherman says 4 to 6 inches. I guess we're gonna work in a cellar today. Good sequencing pays off. Now, all through the FZR project, we have either been very good or very lucky, or both. We have really gotten a lot done under some really unpredictable conditions. Now, because of the weather today, I'm thinking the sequencing that I want to do will all be down the cellar. I got the battery chargers to flip every morning, and then I'll be in a nice warm cellar, and I'm sure Karen has something planned today to cook on that stove to make me hungry all day. The new front end is on the way, so I always try to look around and I try to use each day efficiently. The reason is I don't have unlimited time, and I certainly don't have unlimited money. So I try to make the most out of every minute I spend doing this stuff. And virtually everybody that I've spoken to so far about the black wheels instead of gold wheels thinks that with the yellow paint job and with the ladders, which we're doing for Luciano in the next couple days anyway, if it ever stops snowing, that's going to be the right combination. And every day that goes by, I'm agreeing more. So I've hugged and kissed all my children, and it's time to get back in the house and have a nice cup of coffee with Karen and feed my birds. Now, it's just a little example of good sequencing was that we, yesterday, got all the painting done. Today the painting table has 2 inches of snow on it. Now, because it's never really warm in the shop, it's always a good idea in my case, warm up the part and the tape a little bit. I'm just overly careful about that all the time. The tape, because we have let the tape sit in the garage last night, I don't want to take any chances that we're going to have a problem with the paint. I want to get the backmasking off, and then I want to reverse backmask it. So here's the point with the sequencing that I wanted to make now, is we're probably not going to paint for the next day or so, but the idea is on these snowy days or rainy days or crappy days or days when whatever, is to get the parts all ready so that when we have that day that we are able to paint, everything's ready to paint. The worst thing you can do is wait for that sunny day, and maybe even an above freezing day, and you spend the whole day backmasking. We want to have the parts ready. Now, these look real nice. I'm just going to reverse it. This is going to stay a white stripe. I always have to do this. White stripe, black stripe, white stripe, and this will all be yellow. So all I have to do is take this edge here, run the tape off of that edge, backmask the black, and this will be ready for the yellow. Now, what's very cool is Luciano told me last night when he called The gas charge shocks for the RD have already been shipped from who the hell knows where. Mongolia. Anyway, it's all beside the point. Relatively simple job, but I want to do it carefully. I don't want to destroy any of the work that's gone into this already, because we really were looking at some real problems when we started this. They've all kind of resolved now. Hey, that may be Luciano on the phone right now. So it's pretty easy to figure out when you lay out a paint job and you do it in a way that's very efficient. We really never even had to take the striping tape off again. And we're going to wind up with all those stripes, everything that I think this is going to add a nice little touch to the paint job. And in reality, it's very little extra work. It's a nice little touch. The goal, of course, is not to pull up any paint or not to make any problems that we have to deal with. So far, of course, it's coming right off. Now I'm backmasking this part. I had one little rough spot here, and I can just airbrush that in. Even though it's snowing, I can do it in the back room. I got, well, there's a little chip in the tank here. I didn't even notice that. I don't know what that's, I'll just dress that off just a little bit. And this little spot, it looks like there just was some roughness in the primer I didn't catch. Back here, a little roughness. Well, we'll dress it all off. And then I'll just re-airbrush. With an airbrush, I'll do the white. It's always a thing of touching it up as you go along. Something that impressed me was I was watching Ammo NYC. They were doing a Porsche, and they were into the 5th coat of clear, and they were still doing touch-ups. And the guy was going around with a little flashlight and looking at it, and I was thinking, well, we have a lot less work on this, but there were touch-ups every step of the way. And if you don't do the touch-ups, in the final analysis, the paint is not as nice as as it could possibly be. So, and especially on a wheel, we'll probably get to do some sanding on the wheel today, but to always be fussier and fussier. And when you think you're fussy, be a little fussier. Our trusty Iwata airbrush, great for touch-ups. Yeah, it looks like the snow let up a little bit, but we got our touch-ups done, and that'll be fine. Anytime I can make these little improvements, didn't take much in terms of time and energy, and we already had the paint. So what we've accomplished, we've got this back mast. We're absolutely ready the day the snow stops to spray the yellow. And that'll be, boy, a major watershed in this project. And the only thing left from that point on will be to clear and how many coats we're going to put on. Again, it's Luciano's motorcycle. I hope he likes this. And if he doesn't, I give him the full refund. And he said my shocks are in. I'm so happy. My RD has new gas shocks. So for the time I have left, I thought I'd start sanding out, maybe even get it done today, depending on how much snow comes. I wanted to sand the wheel out with 1200 sandpaper. Now what the reason for that is, yeah, you could paint right over this and probably the finish will be half nice and everything, but I don't want it to be half nice. I want it to really be exceptional. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big job like this. If you start doing this job and you just start like you're washing your car, what I like to do, and I found it works for me, is I take one little spot at a time. Get it the way I'm happy with it, move on to the next piece. Do that piece, move on to the next piece. Do one spoke at a time. Do one piece, one piece. If you do it, divide it up like a checkerboard, like when you do a wet sanding or a buffing job, it just seems like it goes a lot faster and a lot easier. At least that seems to work for me. So we're going to use 1200 paper. And in the past, when I've done this, this is Merca, by the way, and I don't think it's really critical, but when I've done this step in the past, it's made the overall finish that much nicer. The sooner you can get the surface nice and smooth, but you don't want it to be glass. At this point, I want the paint to get a bite on it. Well, doing the FZR project, I used 1200, and it really worked great. So I'm going to go to war with the army I have and see if this works well on the wheel. And whenever I've approached something like this, that's a really big job. This really is a big job. Number one, I don't want to rush it. I don't want to get tempted to say, oh, that's good enough. I want to really take my time here. It's a snowy day. And I don't have a snowmobile. I don't have skis. I'm too old to ski. But I'm not too old to sand. So I'm going to take one little piece of this at a time. The self-etching primer, I've noticed another thing. It sands beautifully for me after the second day. When I only let it dry 24 hours, I find out, well, it sands, but it just gums up the sandpaper. Now you can see, no gumming. This has been setting, I think it's been sitting 3 days, I'm not sure. But anyway, my point is I wouldn't want to do this the day after I painted it because the primer itself isn't really fully dried. Now if I do this one little segment, one little piece, getting down in all the valleys with my fingertips, there's a couple little special tools I have when I get to the final detailing. But what I want to do is start to see the high spots of the aluminum come through. And that takes a little time. Anything that's super nice and super shiny and super, I don't know, attractive, I guess is the right word. One of the threads that goes through it all, it takes time. There we go. Now we're just starting to come through. That's really starting to look nice. But again, it's smooth to the touch. You can feel it. As opposed to here, you can feel it, but it's not shiny like a buffed out paint would be. Now you can see where there's a little high spot there. The edges are just starting to come through. That's about how much sanding I want to do. Now one little piece, that's times like 50. Because there'll be another little piece down here, another little piece here, another, and I'm just going to pick away at it one piece at a time until I'm really happy with it. And you can see what happens. The edges come up. I'm doing this, I'm trying to do one segment at a time. All of these smooth areas, they'll be fine. We don't need to worry about the smooth areas, but all of these little valleys, I want to get down in these valleys. And I want to get down in here. Anywhere there's a reverse curve, what I call a valley. And again, this is just, I got 2 segments done out of 3 on this side. It just takes a lot of time and it's a lot of effort. But when this is all done, believe me, you'll see the difference. And all of these parts had a very similar preparation. A lot of work went into them. But boy, when the result is when they're done, you don't think about the work. You only think about the work while you got to do it. As soon as the work is done, who cares how long it took? And what am I going to do? Go watch the snowflakes fall? Now, as time has gone by, I've got the whole rim done. And the next part is going to be the hub, which I'll do in this, the balancer. But then these, I found a lot easier to do when I can lay the part flat. So I'll take it out of the balancer. I'll do this, the spokes last. But getting the rim done, but it was quite a job. But boy, is that going to pay in a final? I know when you get this part smooth like this, whatever the black goes on here and the clear, it's going to lay down beautifully. That's really a big step in the right direction. Now, as big of a job as this is, what makes it just go as well as it does for me is when I can do one little part at a time, and I say that all the time. Because people I've tried to help figure out how to do their paintwork, whether it's on model planes or whether it's on a motorcycle part, it doesn't really matter. Or even if you're doing a guitar or an engine cover for an outboard engine, it doesn't matter. What matters is just to have the patience through a long process. And the process of doing that kind of finish that we have on the FZR is a time-consuming thing. And the good news is it's not a lot of money. The material is not a lot more than if you just did a cheesy job. What is different is the amount of time you spend. Now, an example is this radius right here. When I pull this apart to do the spokes, I want that radius already done because it's easy to get to the radius right now, but it's going to be difficult later. So I'm making it easy. And of course the sandpaper is staying nice and fresh, which is really, really nice. One little spot at a time. Once it's done, I can move on, or in the case of the spokes, one spoke at a time. And the reality is, it hasn't stopped snowing, so. And I'm not going dog sledding or going to the Iditarod race or anything, so the Iditarod race is up to that coffee pot. Now with the hub done, that's really making me happy. The way that, the feel, you can feel how nice that is. Now, you can feel, of course, the spokes too. Now, I did the edges of the spokes that you can see here because that's going to be difficult to do. And the last thing is I'm going to take this out of the balancer and do one side of the spokes, one spoke at a time, flip it over, do the other side. And then I'm going to celebrate. Maybe I'll take Karen out to dinner tonight in this snow. Now, we did this pretty methodically, and it's gone very, very well. I'm just thrilled the way this has worked out, because we've basically used a day that this was the most appropriate thing in the shop to do, and I don't have to be in the garage with 4 pair of long johns on and a heater going. So this was a win-win-win. And whenever I get this done, I'll put some new tin foil on the balancer and clean this all up. But the whole idea of this whole operation is when we get that day, and it's probably not going to be for a couple of days. It may be. You don't know where this snow is going or how long it's going to last or what. It's all mystery meat. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I'm doing that Italian thing as if time didn't matter. And I don't care if this doesn't get done, that whatever time, some imaginary time in the future it'll be done, but when it's done, it'll be done, and it'll really be nice, I hope. And I'm really looking forward to to having a bike for a lot of years to come, that's for sure. One spoke at a time. And a final thing I thought would be worth it, just to hit this with a soft block. Since we're going to see these spokes, this is going to be the part that sticks out more than anything else from the disc, and let this pick up any high spots. Again, another little step, but every little step toward having a quality job. Yeah, it picked up a high spot right away. This one already has a high spot on it. Details, 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 and if you try to get all the details you can, in the end, the job is just that much better, I think. Anyway, the last thing I have to do, I clean this up. This will be the end of it. I got to clean this up. I got to put new tin foil on the balancer and clean it up, because I want everything prepped up and ready to go when it's that last the last day on Earth here with this weather. But we're supposed to get another day of snow tomorrow. Possible snow, possible rain. But that's why I always say it's so important to sequence up every day to take advantage of what you can do that day, what your energy level is, what, in my case, it's getting lower by the day. Anyway, I'll clean this wheel up, a final cleanup, and I think that's going to be one special wheel when we go to paint it. Well, you can see this was quite a productive day. I've got to re-backmask that. I'm going to do a final cleanup with prep oil on this just before I spray it. I think this was really a good use of a snowy day, and I'm really happy. This is going to be one of the focal points of the motorcycle when this is done. Because everywhere you look, you're always going to see the wheels. You see the paint job and you see the wheels. Those are the two big ones. So I think we accomplished what we wanted to today, and hope we passed on some good information, something you can use, and hope you enjoy restoring motorcycles as much as I do. Thanks for watching.